athletic crew is kind of like being in a touring band. And I had this wanderlust since I was a young kid too. Growing up in Vermont, there's not, I wouldn't say it's very culturally diverse at all. Well, Burlington, maybe. I always had this wanderlust and loved going to different areas and especially urban environments and just seeing how different folks lived and what their roots were and things like that. So I was always kind of chasing that travel form. So moving to Boston gave me a different experience, and I think there's something like 60 colleges and universities in the Boston area. So it's a very vibrant scene, academically, athletically, musically, you name it. Tons of good clubs there, and since high school, I mentioned my music appreciation. I was always online and kind of following my favorite bands to see where they were playing and what week, and I'd get these mailers, and it was always just really intriguing to me to see how this whole thing worked together. When I went to college, I majored in marketing and supply chain management, which helped lead to this booking path as well. Because I was mentioning this to Kalia yesterday. I mean, a lot of the booking game is pitching and selling your clients to buyers, and so knowing how to sell that to them really is what it boils down to, and a lot of that comes from how the band presents themselves, whether it's a DIY thing or a management related thing, just kind of what kind of content you have and how that relates and makes you appealing to buyers. So I don't want to get too long-winded here, but after college, I moved back to Vermont for a year, and I worked for a company called Cabot Creamery, which is a little bit random. I don't know if you guys know about Cabot cheese or if you have tried it or not, but it's the world's best cheddar, and it really is. And we're proud of that up in Vermont. And I worked in their logistics department there, distributing the product nationally and internationally, and just kind of getting down to the nitty gritty of what that actually meant down into barcoding and UPC and boring stuff like that. But definitely an eye-opening experience. And I worked there for a while. And then I had a group of friends that had moved from college out to the San Francisco Bay Area. And that was really appealing to me. They were like, hey man, come out and check it out. It's a great music scene, which I knew from, going back to my early listening days. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan, still am. And that's, and the Bay Area is such a epicenter of the counterculture movement, bands Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, all this stuff was very intriguing. And I thought I'd go check it out, and moved to San Francisco with a bag of clothes and a guitar and $1,000. And after about 9 days, I ran out of that $1,000. And on the ninth day there, I got a job as a transportation analyst for a company at the Port of Oakland, the third biggest port in the United States, and just tracking containers and product that was coming in from Southeast Asia into the Port of Oakland, and just kind of seeing, more of a global transportation scene. And I did that for about 3 years. Prior to quitting and going on tour with my first band, which was more of a progressive bluegrass band called Montana Slim.
We lost you for a minute there, Jesse. Are you back? Not yet.
An Americana rock band, drums, bass, acoustic guitar, Telecaster, and fiddle. So more of a kind of classic country instrumentation. And we found some success early on doing that, and played anywhere between 150 to 200 shows a year. More recently, my wife is also in the band. Her name's Jenny Charles. She plays fiddle, and we had a daughter in the fall of 2000, or winter of 2000.
Jesse, we are losing you just a little bit. Your audio cut out this time.
But during that time period, I was looking for other employment, and my former manager in my first bluegrass band had started a booking agency called Blue Sun Entertainment. And, him and I were in touch a lot, and he needed some help at the time. And I had some experience, various experience, a lot like Ashley. I booked my first band and my second band. And, early on in my San Francisco days, I started booking for a club called Giordano Brothers that Montana Slim played every Thursday, and there was a need there for the owner needed some help booking. So I booked every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday there. A small 100-cap club that was most of the revenue stream was through food and drinks. So there wasn't a whole lot of pressure for bands to draw folks out, but if they did, that was a huge benefit, but I mentioned to Kalia yesterday too that the budget every night, bar none, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, $100, whether that was a solo performer, a 6-piece band, it didn't matter. If you wanted to play, you come in, $100, tips, all the beers you can drink, all the food you can eat, and it was a great scene. So that was kind of my intro into booking and talent buying. Fast forward to 2016, started booking full time at Blue Sun Entertainment. We kind of work with two kind of loose umbrella genres, which would be, bluegrass, Americana is kind of one side. I currently book for Rachel Bayman, which you had last week as a speaker. She's one of my clients. Some other ones you might be familiar with, Jenny Lynn, from Delamay. She had her own solo project a few years ago, and so myself and my boss Sid worked with her, and then another group from North Carolina, Darren and Brooke Aldridge, we worked with for several years. So we have that side, and then we also work with a lot of funk and soul and even some live hip hop.
Just gonna trust that his audio will swoop in.
Mammoth Mountain here in California, and that's more of a, kind of guarantee higher money structure than the free shows at Giordano Brothers. That's more of like a real club booking gig. So that's where I am now, playing music, booking, trying to figure out what's going on with.
Jesse, unfortunately, you're cutting out every once in a while, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in with a few questions. Some of my students from my seminar submitted some questions before today, including, sorry, Jesse, every once in a while you cut out, so I'm swooping in with some student questions, if that's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. You just cut out too, so I didn't hear what you said that last little bit.
Hey, can I jump in for just a second here?
Please.
I don't know. It might help. I don't know if Jesse is using. Are you using the phone call, the one where you call in on the phone for your audio, or?
No, I'm on the computer.
It might actually work better. There's a feature where you can actually call on the phone just for the audio portion. You might try that. Some of my students have had problems in the past, and they've had really good success with that. So I don't know if you can, but you might, if you could do that, that might work a little easier.
Can I leave the video function up and then call in? So I'll mute myself on the Zoom and then call in?
I think
so.
Yeah.
And Jesse, I sent you you should have a phone number to call from that invite that I sent you last night. And in the meantime, as long as you can still hear me, one question that might be helpful is a few students had some questions about the difference between, and I know Ashley in particular, since you've both managed and worked as a booking agent, there's some questions about what's the difference between like getting a manager and getting an agent? Like what do those roles mean and what does that mean for an artist?
Yeah, totally. I think that obviously every manager has a different style, but for the basic just to keep it simple, a manager would look at more big picture strategy for an artist, and they might come in and be able to plug in the booking agent to some venues or some festivals that they've had experience working with, but mostly the manager is there with the artist, talking about strategy and basically everything that the artist is experiencing as a whole, whereas a booking agent is just focusing on the shows and where are they playing, and what markets are they hitting. A manager would say, okay, you just recorded this album. Let's look at your release plan. Let's brainstorm about our publicity. Let's look at some different publicists we can hire. So the manager is just sort of there as an umbrella around the artist, whereas the booking agent would be, you know, like just a piece of the pie. The manager would be more all-encompassing. Hopefully that made enough sense. But like with every different type of manager, they obviously have different connections. So you'll see, like, if there's a management company who specifically is working with bands in a genre, like let's say like a newgrass or like a progressive bluegrass band, and you've got a manager who tends to work with those groups, they might have some connections with festivals that lead more towards the progressive bluegrass style, or they might have contacts in their area if they're located like in the Northeast or out West. And so the manager can team up with the booking agent to discuss like a tour strategy for the artist.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are helpful distinctions, I think. Jesse, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, good. I don't know if I'm supposed to call in on the computer or on the phone. I'm on the phone and I can see you guys, so I can hear you as well. So hopefully this is good.
Yeah, let's stick with that then.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Ashley was just addressing a student question about the difference between like management and booking agents, like what those roles really look like and feel like for an artist. Yeah. And if anyone has
sure,
questions
yeah,
now, go for it.
Yeah, I caught that. Yeah, I think she hit the nail on the head. It's more, yeah, you hear this term, bigger picture, it coming from the management side, and that's really what it is. And I think the ideal scenario, if you are at that point, and a lot, it's more pieces of the pie to cut out, but more of an ideal scenario would be to have both positions filled, for a group once you reach that point, because ideally that manager knows your style of music. They have experience in the industry. They're out there talking to people, networking, and trying to put you in the right spots, also talking to hopefully labels and buyers and all that, while the agent is collaborating with them, creating this kind of group strategy vision and pursuing that and doing more of the nitty gritty actual routing and helping the dates come together. So it's having more parts and pieces to the team just increases the level of success that you can have, I feel like, if you can afford it. And that's a tough one too, obviously.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another theme that I'm seeing come up in some of the questions that students sent me already. And by the way, if anyone has questions now's a great time to type them in the chat box, or to email me, or to just be thinking about it and chime in. One theme that I'm seeing is this kind of underlying question about how do you find the artists that you want to work for? How do the artists find you? Like, what is that initial exchange like? How does that work?
I'll jump in on this one. I am a fan of music, and I'm a fan of singer-songwriters and unique groups who are doing their own thing and writing their own music. And I'll say that from my personal perspective and outlook, I've sort of sought out groups that I'm just really into, that I really enjoy their music. I've seen them perform live. I know that they put on a great show. I've hopefully met them in person. If that's not possible, I'll have a phone call with them. But I really like to make it as personal of an experience as possible. And the slogan or motto for my company, for Carolina Rainbow Productions, is thoughtful booking. So I like to put a lot of heart and soul into the relationships that I'm building with artists. And so that means for me that first and foremost, I have to be into their music. If you catch me in my car at any point in the day, I'm probably listening to the music of the people that I work with because I'm truly just a fan. So at that point, the connections are either established by me reaching out to an artist if I see that they're not currently represented by a booking agent, or it's through word of mouth or through personal reference. For instance, the way that I started working with Bill and the Bells was through Mama Molasses, and she was sort of the connector piece. And then I had a phone call with Kalia and Chris, one of their other band members, and we seem to hit it off because we're working together now. But yeah, for me, it's always coming from a place of, I want to work with this person because I enjoy their music and because we get along in a professional aspect, that we have good communication, that they're answering my phone calls if I am calling them to set up some sort of preliminary interview, and that we seem to understand each other clearly. So I think that's it.
I can jump in here if that's all right. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I think Ashley hit the nail on the head there again. I think first and foremost, you really need to take the time, whether you're going out to see a band or a band comes across your desk from a suggestion, or at this point, at the agency I worked for, we get a lot of pitches from bands just to, our agent emails. And I take the time to listen to them all. And currently, and this happens a lot, my personal bandwidth of taking on new bands is at full capacity right now. But that doesn't mean that I won't take a listen and consider it all. And especially if I really do like the music. And I think, first and foremost, if you are a musician who's really trying to get out there, and you have the passion and the creativity and you have good songs and good players, I mean, and that passion is contagious, and I wouldn't ever stop, if you're pitching to an agency and they say no, they just might not have the time. And if you end up with nobody in that position, then by all means do it yourself and do it to the best of your ability. So it's really, it's kind of all over the board in my world where new clients come from. We usually go as agents to 2 or 3 conferences a year, whether that's the IBMA conference or Folk Alliance, or I went to Polestar last year in Beverly Hills, which was pretty wild. But just being open to new experiences and new bands, and like Ashley said, really just being a music fan is the foundation. And if you find something you like, you're going to want to help them out, and vice versa.
I did want to step in too, if that's okay, Kalia, because I thought of something else while Jesse was talking. Because I currently work with Midwood Entertainment, which is a step up from Carolina Rainbow Productions, obviously, because Carolina Rainbow is only a year old. And I'll say that there is a difference in bringing on new bands with working with a bigger agency versus working with a smaller agency. As Jesse was saying, there's only so much bandwidth and artists that a single agent can take on at a time. And that means that there's only a certain amount of artists that a company can take on at a time to fulfill the roster. So something interesting with working with Midwood is if a band reaches out to us through like our agency emails, the whole agency will get a copy of what the band is sending. And the first thing that they're going to look at is the numbers that the band is bringing in. So how much income are they generating through playing shows? And Midwood will not accept a band if they don't hit a certain mark of income that they're bringing in. So in that case, it's a much more competitive level, because even if there's a group that I really love, but they're not necessarily touring to the point of making a certain amount of money a year, we wouldn't be able to look at them through the company based off of how much they're making off of shows.
Gotcha. All right. If anyone else from my seminar wants to ask their questions, they should feel free. Otherwise, I'll keep asking them for you, which I'm also happy to do. Or Jeremy, if anyone from your class wants to ask questions, now's a good time.
Sure. Feel free, students. We'd love to hear.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Emily.
Okay, so with everything going on and all these dates being pushed back and rescheduled, how are you guys dealing with that and rescheduling the dates? Like, everybody's so uncertain about where we're going to go in the future. So how are you all dealing with that?
That's a good question, and you know, we're definitely in unprecedented times here. Just everybody in general, as a human population here, but especially, you know, this industry has been hit very hard, and the future is uncertain at best. You know, but we're all in the same boat, just trying to stay abreast of current events and different mandates that are coming through. And obviously state to state things are different, but overall it seems for the groups I work with and also my band, that club dates and festivals are all being postponed through the end of June at this point. But we're even seeing them into July and August. And so personally, what I'm doing is you know, looking at different available dates, alternate dates in the fall that we can reschedule, and trying to get holds at this point. A lot of it's really changing day by day, but a lot of the clubs are not offering the same deals that they once did. You know, there's different deal structures in this industry, which you may or may not be familiar with, but a lot of deals, you'll see what's called a guarantee on the front end, which is, you know, a set amount of money that you're guaranteed to make. And that's kind of, you know, a go-to offer that you'll see a lot, but clubs seem to be straying away from that currently as to these rescheduled dates. So really what I'm doing is just getting these holds and trying to get offers. And most clubs are hesitant to confirm, as I am at the club that I work for. It's mostly just trying to put holds on the calendar and just stay current on the different mandates that are happening now, and really just hoping for the best, because what we're seeing is most likely club dates and festival dates aren't going to be on the books until fall of 2020 and maybe even further down the line.
Yeah, like Jesse is saying, most of my work right now is just trying to secure holds, which that's a word that we use all the time in booking agent land. But a hold is basically, it's not a guaranteed spot at a festival or at a club or a venue. It's basically like a holding pattern, like you can get a spot on the date if and when all of the circumstances line up. So unfortunately, you know, there is a lot of unpredictability with everything going on right now. It absolutely affects our work. And as we're trying to secure holds for our bands, there's hesitancy from the venues. And then there are also every other booking agent in the country and in the world trying to secure holds as well. So you're seeing that you're getting second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth holds at these venues because everyone is vying for the same time frame. And Jesse and I were talking before everyone came on the group today, and you know, for me, my mindset has been, obviously I want to stay optimistic, but at this point, the bigger festivals and the really nice events, in my mind, I'm telling myself that they're probably not going to happen until fall of 2021. And that way, if we do end up securing these holds that we're working towards this year, it'll be just a really great surprise that it happens. But I think everyone at this point is sort of clawing for those dates in the fall. And like Jesse was saying, there's not a lot of people who are willing to guarantee money because a lot of these venues are losing money at this time, as you can imagine. So yeah, it's a big question mark. Personally, you know, this is my only source of income, playing music and booking shows. And so I'm actively seeking part-time work in other areas just to sort of stay afloat financially. But yeah, it's strange times.
Yeah, it really is. I'm kind of on board with that too. You know, looking for side work. I was a couple of weeks ago. We got some big snowstorms out here, so I was actually doing some shoveling for some neighbors and things of that nature, and you know, just doing whatever we can. But yeah, it's really a strange time because we're more or less working for full time still for our clients, but most of that communication is just, you know, is bad news. Hey, you know, this show is being canceled or postponed, and so is this festival, and how can we reschedule it, and when, and what's the money going to look like? And for a couple of my acts, as well as my own band, you know, we have new material coming out. We have several EP release shows and tours on the books, and it's really just heartbreaking, you know, in a lot of circumstances, but that doesn't mean that we're going to give up on this. I think, you know, there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel, and you know, I mean, live music for a while now has been a tough industry, and we all just gotta hustle because we believe in it, you know. And whether that was because of the rise of electronic music or whatever it is, whatever has been kind of like a detriment, we've always kind of worked hard to get through it because we love to play, and we love the acoustic music, we love the old time music, and you know, and we're all going to do the best we can, and try to remain hopeful as hard as it is. That's kind of like the mantra I'm trying to stay with. Like, okay, how can we make things better, you know, moving forward, whether that's the fall of 2020 or early 2021, whenever that may be. But it has been tough for sure.
I see that Dan posted a question. He says he has a question about helping bands build up their prices. Do you want to elaborate on that, Dan?
Yeah. Well, first of all, our hearts go out to agents and artists right now who are, you know, really feeling the pinch due to this. I was talking to somebody who is in a very long time and well-known bluegrass band yesterday, and they can't get unemployment. They can't get that that business loan right now because somehow the way that their group operates in terms of sole proprietorship versus partnerships and stuff, they're not eligible. So they're missing out on some of these benefits. But my question's not about that. My question is about how do you build up your price, or how do you help a band build up their price? Like, because it seems like, you know, for a lot of startup bands, you know, they'll take just about anything they can get to begin with, right? They'll work that $100 a band gig, but then at some point when they get serious, you know, it seems like that $3,000 to $5,000 per show range is a hard place to get out of, and to move past that to the $5,000 to $7,000 range, or, you know, if you're really successful, like those top few that get in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. You know, that's, boy, wouldn't that be nice? But you know, like a band goes out for the first couple years and they're in that $3,500 range. Maybe if they live here and they're playing the West Coast, they might charge $5,000 because they have to fly out or something. Everybody starts to know, like all the promoters start to know what, you know, Norman Adams would know what this one paid for this one and that one, and they don't want to budge off their prices they paid you 2 years ago, even though the band might have won some awards and you know they're doing well. What do you all as agents, how do you navigate that? Like, I'm sure you're trying to get the best price you always can get. What tips the needle for a show promoter?
Yeah, totally. I listened to a podcast called The Working Songwriter. It's by Joe Pug. I don't know if y'all have listened to it, but there was a really great episode with Mandel and Orange where they were talking about when they first started out and they were booking themselves as a DIY band. And they said their greatest negotiation was always like, the promoter would say, how long can you play and for how little money? And I think they said they got $300 for a 4-hour set, and they like high-fived about it because they thought it was just such a sweet deal that they had made with this talent buyer. So yeah, this is a big thing. I feel like, especially because I work with bands who are in several different stages of their career. So I work with some groups that are just starting out, DIY singer-songwriters, who are on the lower end of the pay range. And then I work with some groups where I'm pushing $10,000, $12,000 asking prices for those groups. So for me, I think as a booking agent, you really want to up and set the band up so that you can be in a place where you can say no. I think that's the most powerful thing that as an agent and as a band that you can do, as long as you can sort of hold out. And obviously the band has to be in a position where they're not counting on the money to, you know, pay their electric bill or something. But when you can get to a point where you keep getting these $3,000, $4,000 gigs and you're ready to bump it up to the next level because you've won awards or you got a specific nomination or you're on like a syndicated program, something that could push you on to the next level, the thing I do as an agent is I say no, because there's a lot of power in that. If someone comes to me with an offer that I don't want to take because I want to take this band up to the next level, I'll say no. I'll turn it down. And then, you know, eventually you'll tip the scale that way. It is a scary place to be because saying no is hard, especially for artists who are so passionate about performing and really still, you know, I'm in a position where I can get paid thousands of dollars to play a show, but honestly, it's like I would still take less for it to perform my own music because I love doing it. But that's why we have agents who advocate for us and who push us to the next level. So I think turning down offers that are too low for you when you want to reach the next place is the best thing that you can do. As long as you can wait it out and be persistent about it, you will get to those $10,000 offers eventually. It's just about sticking it out and really holding your ground, and just remaining like consistent about why you're asking for that amount and why the band deserves that much money. So I think, yeah, saying no to people who are lowballing you.
But then the flip side of that too is the band has to be able to put butts in the seats, right? I mean, they have to be able to be worth 10,000 in some fashion or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly what it boils down to. And, you know, when you're starting off, I think you really got to kind of jumpstart and keep growing your, your hometown is where it all starts. I mean, there's a million ways to skin a cat, as they say, as far as growing a band, but a lot of it, as far as when you're starting to see these offers grow and hoping to see them grow and growing your fan base, it really does boil down into hard ticket draw. And Spotify numbers and things of that nature are all well and good, and they are awesome, and they do mean a lot. But if you're going into a new market, it doesn't, just if you have hundreds of thousands of Spotify listeners, it doesn't mean to your first time in Oklahoma City that 300 people are going to turn out. It's more likely that 35 people are going to turn out, until you have a little bit of established tour history. It's tough to bring in those higher offers. So you just got to stick with it, and if you are really catching fire and growing a rabid fan base, then I think you will see those numbers grow fairly quickly, which is hard to do. It's a bit like catching lightning in a bottle, I'd say, but it can be done. And, for bands that are a little bit further in their career, they probably are seeing that they are putting those butts in the seats. And once they're doing that, if they're seeing, Grammy nominations and things like that, and radio presence and those Spotify numbers and, big social media numbers, then those numbers will grow. And I do think that saying no to an offer that you don't think is worth it to you is a great thing to do, and that'll help you kind of jump to that next level. But it really does boil down to hard ticket draw in a lot of cases as well, unless you have that incredible allure, of a band that's fresh out of the gates and all over the radio without any tour history, which is rare but awesome when it does happen.
Yeah, totally. I think too, obviously you've got to have all of it works in steps. You don't just suddenly become a band overnight that is playing $10,000 shows. You have to have the hard history, the hard ticket sales, put the butts in the seats, all of that, everything that Jesse was just saying, 100%. And I also think that a huge thing, especially if you're talking about old time bluegrass, Americana, and that genre world, knowing which venues are going to be the venues that can bring you that type of draw and that type of income as well. So you're talking about like performing arts centers. You just want to look in a different realm, because you've got your clubs, you've got festivals, and then you also have performing arts centers. And so it really is also about making sure that it's the right band with the correct venue, because the draw in a performing arts center for a certain group could make all of the difference versus trying to put that same group in a club that's just not going to bring the right fan base out. So looking at demographic in different markets as well.
Thank you all.
I see that, let's see, Jacob Metz, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah. When you start working with an artist and things are in the beginning stages of that relationship, what does it look like when the band or artist is doing their part? What's a good situation for that, as opposed to maybe you start working with a band or artist and they're not doing their part, and it's like, okay, do they want this, or are they expecting me to do all the work?
Yeah, I think really the more initiation and the more passion on the band side is going to get that group obviously further than one that's not showing any motivation on that level. And I think, it really depends on your relationship with your agent, because different agents do different things, and some of them go above and beyond. Some of them will just strike the deal, send it to the admin assistant, they write up the contract, and that's it. But I think you need to be on a level of communication with your agent as to it's understood with what the responsibilities are on the agent side and also on the artist side. So, what clubs and venues like to see is some strategic, organized follow-up on it, what's called advancing the show, which is, someone from the band side or the agency side, someone on that side of the fence, contacting the venue to know exactly, run of show details, what time they need to be there, what time sound check-in is, load in, what the set times are, but also kind of what kind of marketing plan is happening behind that. Who's creating the Facebook event? Are there physical posters being mailed? What's happening? It just kind of opens the communication line. So I think establishing what those roles are between the band and the agency and the venue is paramount, because you don't want to drop any balls, that are in the air at that point, because when you're getting started, or even, when you're further along in your development as a band, the more details that are taken into consideration and followed through on, the better. I don't know if that really answers exactly, but I just think establishing what those roles are and making sure that they're done.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I will say that if I'm working with an artist, what it looks like in the day-to-day for us to have a successful working relationship is that you have to be good at communication. I like to talk to my artists on the phone at least once a week when we're, obviously things are changing now because there's not as much to talk about, but I have a schedule of when I'm going to call an artist. So I talk to someone in the band, whether it's one of the members, or if they're not available, then I'll talk to their manager. But I'm going to touch base and check in with you as an artist at least once a week so that we can talk about what's coming up on the calendar. We can go over a show that you played over the weekend so that you can tell me whether the sound tech was adequate, whether you sold a lot of merch, what it was like. And obviously they'll be sending that information into a report as well. But I think the biggest thing as an artist is that you, just because you have a booking agent doesn't mean that you get to just kind of sit back and then things start magically happening. You have to be actively engaged with your agent and constantly being in conversation. I really like it if artists have ideas about new venues. Like sometimes, things are popping up so quickly. If I'm working with 10 artists all at once, if there's an opportunity for them to open up for a certain show that they see an artist needs support on, I like for my clients to text me or call me or email me and be like, hey, can we try and open up for so-and-so on this date? So I just really like when you're actively involved in your own music career and your plans. Even when you have a manager, an agent, a publicist, you have to be invested in your work or it's just going to fall flat. People are going to lose interest. The more excited you are about your own music and what you're doing as an artist, the more excited I'm going to be to help you out and take you to the next level.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I did. Appreciate you allowing me to, guys. A question had popped up in my mind. Last week, we discussed in my seminar class, we discussed concert promotion, something that I've done quite a bit of. I'm also a performer, so I've done a lot of different things in the business. So I see both sides of this, and both groups are taking a hit big time right now, obviously. In our discussion, one of the things that came up, we started kind of speculating, and again, it's only speculation, what's the circuit's going to be like, what the festival scene is going to be like post this COVID-19 pandemic. And we all know there's going to be changes. Things will be different, probably more changes in the short term as we go back into or go into what people call the new normal. But in addition to that, and I talked about this at the beginning of class, I own a retail business, a music store. And of course, retail businesses, small businesses are also taking quite a hit right now. And so I found a definite need to be adapting quickly to the new environment. I'm now offering online lessons, of course, for my students. But something that occurred to me very recently was that if most of the retail stores are closed, at least when it comes to music stores, then when people do buy things and they are still purchasing, they must be buying them more online. They must be buying more mail order. We also, in my discussion last week on concert promotion, we referenced an article where they talked about the digital economy and talked about where certain venues were, I guess those opportunities were drying up, and this was prior to COVID-19. People were finding more work in other arenas, possibly producing soundtracks, for instance, for film. And since we have so many channels these days, we have things like Netflix, we have Amazon Prime, we have all these people producing video content that needs musicians. That was one way. And again, this was prior to COVID-19, but that was one way people were adapting. Have you guys, thought about that? Maybe that there might be some other opportunities. Are you pursuing other opportunities, not only as performers, but possibly for your artists these days?
Personally, and it's been a bit overwhelming, I'm sure it is for everybody else, but I've been trying to keep tabs on a lot of these virtual festivals, both playing them and recommending my artists for them too, and just as a different revenue stream and a way to stay in touch with your fans and still play, quote unquote, in a live environment. I found that it's even more nerve-wracking to play in front of your phone than it is in front of a venue with however many people in it, Right. But yes, I do have a close friend of mine that has kind of delved into the soundtrack scene, and that's been good for him. He does a lot of kind of like being in this area, a lot of ski and outdoor adventure movies and things of that nature, which have been, worked out for him. I've never personally pursued that, but seeing as I appreciate you bringing that up because, that's definitely intriguing to me as well. I was also thinking, feeling for you guys on the retail side. I just had this discussion with my wife last night. Is like, what is that going to look like on the retail side? It's going to be probably more people leaning towards, that Amazon experience where you're just ordering from your fingertip to your mouse to your front door. And, does that cut out the little guys like us and the guys that have our, your music store and your retail business, and it's just very unclear. So I think it is pertinent and smart to be thinking about different revenue streams, whatever that may be. And, it is a scary time, but hopefully we will make it through. I know there's a lot of talk of different venues out here on the West Coast. Are they going to be able to make it through that? Are certain bands going to be able to exist after this? And there is no answer at this point, but that what you brought up, the soundtrack idea does seem to be a viable alternative. So I think if you can always be, tuning into the current events and then also, taking people's suggestions and networking and talking to your friends that are in the industry and just, we're all in this thing together. And so any revenue you can bring in, then by all means, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that is, obviously concerning, and there are a lot of things that are concerning right now during COVID-19, but I know for me personally as an artist and just working with artists in the day-to-day, that streaming services have never been a lucrative place for musicians. And so I think that's been frustrating that a lot of most of the money that artists are able to make is from playing shows, from touring and playing at these venues. So it's obviously taken a huge hit for everyone financially. And unfortunately, we can't rely on 10 million Spotify plays to pay our bills because Spotify's just never been good for that. But I will say that I've been hopeful seeing success with live stream concerts. And I think that transitioning into the new normal of at least being able to perform virtually, while it is super nerve-wracking, Jesse, I completely agree with that. It's very strange when you can't you can't feed off of like the clap energy in the room. But I've been hopeful just seeing how successful live stream concerts have been. I work with a band out of Pennsylvania called the Jacobs Ferry Stragglers, and they've had immense success. I mean, making over $2,000 just in one live stream concert, and they're able to support themselves right now financially. What that's going to look like in the next few months, I have no idea. I don't think anyone does, but I do think that artists should take advantage of playing live stream shows and continuing to engage their fans in that way. Also, I've been thinking about just creating some new merchandise to generate more revenue for people who can purchase artist merch on websites, because that's another way for us to make money. Something that I've also been thinking about, which I was thinking of doing pre-COVID-19, and with everything going on, it sort of has given me more time to think about it. But something that I'm really interested in doing is coming up with a class that I can open up to the public and team up with my friend. She's in a band called Blue Cactus, and she and I have been talking for a while about the DIY music scene and how it is more common for bands to self-book and self-manage and self-promote. We had discussed creating a DIY class on how to run your own social media successfully, book your own shows successfully, and manage and promote your band properly. And in that way, we could teach it online on a platform like this, maybe. And that way it would give musicians, specifically DIY musicians, information and knowledge on how to get started, because it's, you know, we kind of all start out at square one. We don't just jump into having a manager and a booking agent. So this will just teach those people how to communicate over email, over the phone, what a professional Instagram page looks like, and all of those. So that's sort of what I've been stewing on with all of my extra free time, is thinking of a way that I can bring that DIY class to life.
Sure. Thank you.
I see here that, let's see, William Teeple had posted a question, and I just asked him personally a follow-up question in the chat, but maybe, William, would you like to ask it yourself? I don't think we can hear you right now, so maybe I'll ask it for you. He had asked if you all have any experience with music libraries, and what would the advantages be in submitting songs to the libraries? And I wasn't sure what he meant exactly by music libraries, but perhaps you two do.
I'm not sure I do, actually. Would it be like the Library of Congress, something like that, like as far as like a copyright library goes? Or I guess I'm unclear as to what that may be.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Oh, he said, he clarified there are companies which market music to film, TV, etc.
Oh yeah, like different kind of publishing companies and things of that nature. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't see really any downfall to chasing that at all. I personally don't have any, personal publishing and licensing experience. All my stuff is registered through ASCAP, and I receive fractions of pennies every quarter. But there are certain companies out there that are looking for that material, and I do have friends that have been successful in that realm. So I'd say by all means, I think that could be anything as far as like the quality of the recording goes, or whether it's just the lyrics or a demo. I think all that is acceptable depending on which company you go through. But maybe Ashley, you have more experience with that than I do.
I have very minimal knowledge about it. I do know people who work in that industry, and I've definitely been interested in sending songs out to be considered for radio, movies, TV. But for me personally, it would be a situation where I would have to hire a company or a specific publicist or agent to do that work for me, because I don't personally have the knowledge to do it. So right now, financially, it would be hard for me to hire someone to look into that. But I definitely think it would be really cool to get like personally, I would like to get a song on the Target playlist in stores, but I don't know personally how to do that, but I've researched it, and I would be better off hiring someone who knew more about it.
All right, well, we might have time to maybe get another question in here if anyone wants to ask. I can pull up my list from my seminar students.
I don't have a question, but I have a statement. Ashley, you made a line earlier in the presentation, staying ahead of dopamine. That is excellent. And thank you both. You're really knowledgeable. I learned a lot today.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
been our
thank
pleasure,
you.
man. It's nice to share our experiences and in this format. It's been great, and I'm happy to field any other questions offline through email or phone call or text or anything. So just feel free, because we can talk at length about all this stuff, and we're all just trying to navigate these uncharted times together currently, and it's been great to speak with you guys. So thank you.
Dan and Jeremy, do you have any follow-up questions on behalf of your seminars or personally?
I don't in particular, but you were very informative. I appreciate your answering what I said about the alternative ideas. We're all just thinking, we're all brainstorming, and I think the biggest thing that we talk about, and we were talking this before this happened, is the need to be flexible. The markets do change. Of course, I'm in the bluegrass side of things, and we all tend to think of the festival circuit, but sometimes we forget that the bluegrass festival circuit didn't exist when the founding fathers found markets for their music in the early days. So
Right.
I appreciate your being with us and your comments. They're very informative.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for all of our guests, whether you're students or people from the music community who sat in to watch. And thank you, Kalia, for making this happen. And to Ashley and Jesse, we're glad you're part of our ETSU family now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Like Jesse was saying, I'm an open book too. This has been a really incredible experience. So thank you all for asking us to talk to you, because I was saying to Jesse, every day I just sort of do what I do, and it's rare that I take a step back and realize exactly what that I'm a booking agent full-time and that I'm a musician, and it's a really cool thing to be able to share with people who are so interested in the field. I'm also an open book. You can email me anytime. Kalia can give you my email information. Even when artists reach out to me and I'm not personally able to take them on as a client, I always help people tighten up their pitch. So that's something that I really enjoy doing, just because I like helping folks out. So if any of you all are in bands and you're wondering if the emails that you're sending out are professional or if they could be tweaked a little bit, you can feel free to send that to me, and I'm happy to mess with it. I am just a total nerd about emails. I love them. So you can reach out to me anytime about that.
Awesome. Yes, I know both of these folks are really just wealths of information, so do take advantage of that if you can. And just as a reminder, I did post links to both their band, their musical projects, and their agencies in the chat if you want to take a look at that. So you can contact them through that, or you can always reach out to me or reach out to the program and we can connect you as well. I did want to mention, in addition to, yes, thanking our guest artists and thanking everyone who's here for joining us, I also just wanted to mention that you should keep an eye out for our remaining seminars this semester. I know next week we'll have Stephen Wade with us, who's an incredible scholar and musician, and amongst many other projects wrote an incredible book called The Beautiful Music All Around Us. And I think that the U.S. Navy Band, Country Current, is going to be joining us as well. And we also have an alumni panel coming up in a few weeks. So take a look on Facebook and various other platforms where we post about that. And also I wanted to just drop a little hint that this summer there's going to be a 12-week series of additional online public sessions like this. So stay tuned for more on that. I think that's all I have for everybody today. Thanks for joining us. We'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Thank you again, Kalia. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everyone should go listen to Bill and the Bells. If you don't already, follow them on social media. And
good job, booking agent.
Thank you. Thanks to ETSU for having such an incredible program. I know that if I, in my younger days, had known about such a great program, that I definitely would have pursued something like this. And I think it's an incredible gift that you all are a part of it. And ETSU is great. And thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end this call. I hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Have a great day.